Alan.
Thanks very much. This is not just the best session of the series here. It's like the best session I've ever been to in 40 years. It's really good. We got 3 papers, all addressing essentially the same problem, different ways of doing it, and they all kind of are missing something from the other papers, so we can all learn from each other. And both discussants, we had Jordan did a good job of providing some answers that we didn't know, and Erica gave some new questions we didn't know either. So really great session. So let me just focus. I can't do everything, but I don't want to do everything. I want to leave some room for everybody else. But let me just focus on this issue of what we can borrow from each other's papers. I think that's the best thing. So we see Rudy. Well, thanks a lot for testing our theory. Appreciate that. And good job there. But you have another job to do, which is you said this thing at the beginning. You say, well, we had this underrepresentation of minorities and law officers. So, but you need to do something about it. You can't just say that. You can say it, but that's not that helpful. Who doesn't know that already? But why don't we see what can we do about that? And guess what? We see Chow's paper says, how about maybe competition? Maybe that would help. Why don't you borrow that? It's a good idea, and you can have bigger implications of your findings that the minority law officers do a good job. If you can say, let's find a policy that would do it. Maybe it's a competition policy. Maybe it's an education policy. I don't know. Try different things. There's plenty to do, and then Chow, you saw some stuff in the other papers here and discrimination. Why aren't we comparing competition and these other things, as Erica's saying? It's a great idea, and why not take advantage of that? But you also need to do a little bit better job on the literature check. I shouldn't have to keep telling you guys this. You should do this on your own. So there's a lot of research on competition and minority outcomes and so forth. And fortunately, I already assembled it for you because it's all in my 2020 Journal of Corporate Finance paper on banks and the real economy. Just look in there; they're all in there. And Rudy, in there, you'll also find. And you guys will also find John Sednoff's paper in there also about the CFPB data on the consumer. He has that in there too. So you'll see that it's actually in the same issue of the journal. I'm the editor of the journal. So okay. So and then Jordan, wow, you had some really great examples there, but I'm not sure you even realize how good that last example was. You have a shared identity, but the guy faking it. He's not Jewish, but he faked the identity and did a great job. He made money because he served a community that was underserved, and that was profitable for him, and he did a good job. And then you have the other result that the community helped out the shared identity, and they helped out the Jewish guy that his business was. So could you send us information or call me or something? We'd love to use that example. We need some more detail put in the paper. Can't just say you knew some guy. We have to have a little bit more detail, but we'd love to put that in. That would be great. So thanks very much. And Scott, you make sure you answer her question about the different mixing minorities. Okay.
All right, so let's let all 3 authors respond to both discussants, and then we will collect more questions from the audience.
Should I go first?
You can go.
Okay, all right. Thanks for the thoughtful comments, Jordan and Erica and Alan. So it feels a huge relief that Jordan said this is consistent with his experience as a banker, both in the big bank and now in the small bank. So that's the biggest issue academics have with, hey, is this, we need a sanity check to make sure we are not just talking some random stuff we find in the data. That's great. And back to Erica's comment, I want to mention this individual race part. I agree, it's very important to look into individual race. And it's important to see whether there's a black to black match versus Asian to Asian or Hispanic to Hispanic. That's actually pretty true. We do it in our appendix, but the reason why we don't emphasize that is because it's actually a sad truth. If you look at our appendix table, if you look at a white loan officer, they have 5 million loans in our sample. And if you look at a black loan officer, they only have 50,000 loans in our sample. that's only 1%. That's a staggering fact. We just don't have much statistical power to draw some conclusive thing from the data to say, hey, this is what we find between black loan officers matching with black borrowers. And just by this fact, I think it's striking because, hey, we have to increase their representation so we can actually learn more from the data, right? So that's my response.
I can jump in. No, great comments and very helpful in helping us think through where to go from here. To comment on our aggregation of all minority-owned banks into a single classification, that's a great point, and it's interesting you discussing your statistical problems with loan officers, because that's frankly the exact same problem we have. Is that there are few minority-owned banks. And so for this paper, we've aggregated them into a single category. We do think that there could be a lot learned, and would definitely suggest or encourage in the future. What can we learn by examining what are the differences within minority-owned banks and how they behave? And we're certainly not suggesting that all minority-owned banks are the same or this sort of thing, but that's the issue we ran into, and we definitely encourage future research on that.
So thanks for your excellent comments and helpful suggestions. So as for Jordan's comments, I think it's very difficult to answer your question, how to attract minority borrowers and how to compete in the minority communities. I guess maybe we can borrow the two papers in my session to answer this question. For example, we can market your banks as discrimination-free banks because your banks are owned by minorities. You can say you can cite Professor Scott and Professor Allen's paper showing that minority-owned banks, they're helpful to your community's resilience during the COVID period. And also you can also hire lots of minority borrowers or loan officers by citing Professor Reedy and Professor Erica's paper by showing that minority officers, they are less likely to discriminate against minority borrowers. So as for Professor Erica's suggestions, I talked a lot with her, and she gave me lots of suggestions and comments. I really appreciate that. Special thanks to her. And I think her point that we're taking, I will decompose my sample into different time periods by showing that maybe before financial crisis period, the main driver of bank competition is the bank deregulation law changes. After financial crisis, maybe I can look at the exogenous shocks brought by the consolidation waves to check whether bank competition can impact the gaps in entrepreneurship in different time series. As for Professor Allen's suggestions, I will definitely study your JCF paper. Actually, I already track your Google Scholar and every day. So thank you for your comments.
Don't do that.
All right. Do we have more questions from the audience? Wait. Yes, please.
Fascinating session. One question for the last paper is, how do you deal with the concern that places that experience deregulation have less complaints about discrimination for some other reason? For example, out-migration. For example, people that typically complain, make this complaint is just migrating to other places, or perhaps other reason that is explaining this lower rate of complaints.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. In my regression, because of time reason, I don't show you the details of the control variables. So in my regression, I already control for the minority population and the total population in this area by showing that controlling for the population minority fraction, then my results are still robust. Yeah.
Alan had another question.
I just kind of remembered something funny, which is there was I don't remember her name or anything. There was kind of a community activist, a woman who, she was a black community activist. It turned out she was actually racially white. And she took a lot of heat for pretending to be black, but she was doing it actually. She was kind of faking the identity, and she was kind of doing a good thing, helping the minorities. And she took a lot of crap for it, and it was very unfair to her. So what? What do we care? We should go by what people are doing, not by what race they are. And people were, getting mad at her for pretending to be black, and we shouldn't do those kind of things. So at the faking the shared identity, whatever it is that gets the job done, let's just do that.
Yes.
Hi. Allow me just to diverge a little bit from what Alan said before. I believe this session is as good as the first. Now the entire conference is amazing. So my question now is, for Rudy paper, I find it fascinating what you found that minority officers, they actually present soft skills and that turn out to better outcomes. And I'm as surprised as Jordan to know that also affects the defaults. So I was interested to know from you whether that has to do also with the education level of those officers. Do they have to prove more in order to have the same jobs as their counterparties? This is one question. And the other question that I have is for the last paper that I saw, Shangli. The question is the following. You look into a part of your analysis, you look into this file. And you certainly point, and I agree that perhaps there's some underestimating there because not all banks probably have the easy tools for information. And there's some questions here relating to what level of regulation and where. Do you think that starting from create a more efficient platform for filing complaints could be something that should be the first step?
In terms of the education level of loan officers, unfortunately, we do not observe that in the data. But just to not bother everyone with the details, so in every single test for the most strict column, we have a branch by year by loan officer fixed effects. So what does this mean is we basically can compare the within officer effects of this result, and everything goes through, which means that by holding their fixed characteristics or traits constant, including education, and we still see the results. So I think that addresses your concern.
Yeah, thanks for your suggestion. I totally agree with your comments. I think because I think the complaint database only reflects a very small sample of the discrimination because people will only file a complaint if it have real impact on them, such as if their loan are rejected, if their loan have high interest rate. So maybe by result, maybe will be stronger if the CFPB market their database and encourage people to file complaints against discrimination. Yeah.
Okay, I hope we can keep collecting questions, but we ran out of time. So thank you very much for your attention, and please keep the conversation going during the break.